Hello everyone, my name is Daren Egan with RBH Sound. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director here, and with me today I've got Shane Rich. He's our Technical Director. He's been the Technical Director since, 1994, hasn't it? Yeah. And today we're going to be talking about the S-1212 subwoofer. It's the flagship in our S-Series lineup. And Shane, talk to us a little bit about the design, the overall stacked woofer design, and why that versus something maybe slightly different.
Okay, sure. Well, to begin with, the design for the S-1212 is based on our flagship subwoofer, the SV-1212. The performance that it has is renowned. But the real goal with the S-1212 was to come up with a subwoofer with similar type performance, but at a more affordable price. And so let's just talk about the similarities that we have between the two subwoofers for a moment.
I noticed that you've got the dual 12s stacked like you do with the SV-1212 here.
Right.
Is there an advantage to that, a coupling advantage maybe?
Well, there is, and certainly in terms of output, dynamic range. Anytime you have two subwoofer drivers close coupled, you have your very best output or efficiency in terms of output. So the SV-1212 reaches down to below 20 hertz with substantial output. In fact, there's a few reviews out there that show comparisons of output with this subwoofer and other very large subwoofers, and is still one of the premium subwoofers available on the market today. So, can we do something similar at a lower price point without making too many compromises? I think the answer is yes. Let's take a look at how the S-1212 compares to the SV-1212. Just looking at them, you can see right off the bat the S-1212 is comparable in size. In order to get a subwoofer that plays low, has substantial output, you have to have a relatively large cabinet. As you can see, the S-1212 is actually a little bit taller than the SV-1212. So,
but not as tall as the old SX-1212, which was even more substantial.
Actually, this is more along the lines of the original SX-1212. So 32 inches on the SV-1212 in terms of height. This is 34.5 inches. A little more depth on the SV-1212, roughly 22-inch total depth, where this is about 17 inches total depth, I believe. So cabinet volume is pretty close. And then we come to the way the system is tuned, or in this case where we have vents. The vent on the SV-1212 is on the bottom of the subwoofer.
And it extends pretty high too, right? I mean, it comes up to nearly the full length of the cabinet.
It does. It's over 2 feet in length.
And that's a 5-inch?
It's a 6-inch diameter port. Flared ports. So it really can move a lot of air.
Well, as this can as well. I mean,
and
dual 4s, right?
with the dual 4s, you're getting roughly the same kind of port volume as the single 6 that we have there, but we actually have some benefits to going with this design in terms of flexibility. We have different tuning options. So with the two vents open, the tuning of the system is right around 23 hertz. If you plug one of the ports, then the tuning drops to around 18 hertz. And the other option with this subwoofer...
No, hang on. Before we go any further there, you said to plug one vent would actually drop the tuning frequency of the system. Now, do you sacrifice output because you're removing one of the orders of the system?
Yeah, excellent question. Yes, when we go to a smaller port volume, we end up lowering the tuning frequency, but at the expense of output capability in the slightly higher base frequency.
So even though something might have a frequency response of, say, 18 hertz to 150 hertz, it doesn't mean that it's going to have the same amount of output that, say, something like this would have from that same passband with everything loaded on the front baffle.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you end up blocking one of the vents, you've cut the effective air moving capability of the subwoofer in half at close to the tuning frequency. So, but the other effect you have is that that single vent now sees essentially what looks like a slightly larger box in comparison to if you had the two vents. So bottom line is that you can get the most output and most comparable output from the S-1212, comparing it to the SV-1212, if you leave both ports open.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, very similar in terms of output capability between the two subs at that point.
So what do you think about the difference in the driver configuration between the signature driver and the S-series driver? I mean, should we go into that for just a second and talk about?
Yeah, we can talk about it for a moment.
The fundamental differences between the two woofers?
Yeah. So the bottom line is the S-1212 driver is based on the SV. Let's talk about similarities. The throw of the driver is essentially the same. We have the same output capability in terms of excursion on this driver compared to the reference subwoofer.
And I've noticed here that there's a bumped back plate to this as well.
Yeah, we have bumped back plates, so you don't have any
bottoming out.
Yeah, bottoming out that can occur with the driver. As hard as you're driving, you put over 1,000 watts to this sub easily and not have any issues with bottoming the drivers out.
Now, this one is a stamped basket, whereas I know the SV series or the signature series woofers are an aluminum cast basket.
Right.
What are the reasons why you'd go to an aluminum basket? What are the advantages of going to the steel?
Well, this is mainly where we talk about if we're getting the same or very similar performance out of this model, and yet it's less than half the cost of the reference model, there are going to be some differences in terms of the components. So that is one of the differences. It's less expensive to do the stamped steel basket, but this is a very high quality stamped steel basket, extremely rigid, and again, it allows for extended throw of the driver. The main difference being that the cast aluminum basket is a little bit more inert, doesn't transfer quite as much energy into the cabinet, so it's a little bit cleaner that way. There's a little bit of loss in the stamp basket versus the cast basket in terms of the magnetic circuit and the motor structure. But those are all.
But those are trade-offs you have to have in order to save some money. I mean.
Yeah, again, when you figure this is less than half the price of the reference subwoofer, I think that some people are going to be willing to accept some of those minor trade-offs when the performance is still very much in line. So you're looking at very small differences in performance between the two subwoofers. Overall, if you want to go to the nth degree, this really is the Ferrari of subwoofers.
Sure.
If you just want a really fast car, this is maybe the Hellcat of of subwoofers. So
in terms of cabinet construction, I know that I've seen this torn down, and talk to me about the internal bracing that's in here. I mean, we haven't cut corners there, right? I mean, we're taking the same
very high quality cabinet, same type of MDF construction. Now, the one big difference, we do have a cabinet that is somewhat teardrop shaped with the SV product. It's a little less prone to standing wave buildup inside of the cabinet compared to a rectangular cabinet, which we have here. But this is very well acoustically damped. It does still have very good bracing, and so the main differences are, I think, you look at the finish, beyond the aesthetics of the curved cabinet, the finish on this is obviously just a a different level than what you have with the piano black finish.
Absolutely.
And you know, for some people, it is still a very attractive finish. I think one of my favorites.
Well, one thing that's interesting about the S-1212 and the S series in general is that these cabinets are made in the States. They're made in our cabinet facility, so it's what's nice about that is you're not dealing with a foreign cabinet.
Yeah.
That's just, you know, to support the USA, Made in USA label. But beyond that, let's talk for just a second about why somebody would want to maybe go with just one of these versus maybe two smaller subwoofers.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
or is that an advantage or is it a disadvantage?
It really depends on the type of installation we're talking about. If you know, you have a medium to even large sized room where you know you're trying to get substantial bass output capability in the room, not really wanting to go to the added expense of buying two different subwoofers, then this is really, I think, a great option to go with because, again, it has the two 12-inch drivers. You know, there are systems out there where you might say, well, could we have two 12-inch subwoofers in different parts of the room? Yes, you can.
But
and
you
there's
might have
some benefits.
Cancellation with that too, right?
Well, there can't be, you know, or you could have, sometimes you'll have smoother response actually in the room with multiple subs if you're trying to cover a large listening area.
But the configuration for that can sometimes take a little while to get exactly right, or
Yeah.
you might have to modify the placement a little bit to get it
It's
even
true,
better.
and you usually don't have quite the same overall peak SPL capability that you do with
everything built in
you know,
one.
with everything right together, the two subs essentially integrated into the same cabinet. And then the other benefit is that we have, because we have the single larger cabinet, it's much easier to tune it at a lower frequency because the length of the vents goes to the back and then up the back of the cabinet.
Oh, wow.
So, in fact, this particular subwoofer, in order to save a little bit of space on the depth of the cabinet, has a hybrid tuning system where we're using both a tubular round type vent up front or port, and then that transitions into essentially what's a slot vent in the rear, which travels up the back side of the cabinet.
Oh, that's great. So a question that I'm sure a lot of the viewers may have is why two 12s versus a single 15, say?
Yeah, great question. Typically speaking, as you go to a single larger woofer, you have more susceptibility to cone flexing or deformation.
Which can lead to distortion.
Right, exactly. Compression, essentially, because that cone is no longer acting as a true piston and moving back and forth. It's flexing or bending. You're losing some of the energy to that.
Yeah.
So, and then we have essentially double the motor force that you might have on a single 15, and really, this is with the dual 12s in terms of its piston area is more equivalent to an 18, a single 18. So again, you go to a single 18, the size of the box is really wide. You have more potential issues with the cone flexing because the voice coil is transferring motion to the cone. The cone is that much larger, and so you have anytime you go to a larger cone, you have more possibility of breakup modes in the cone.
And then having the dual drivers, I'm guessing it splits the load in half, so you're technically running half the power that you really could to each woofer. Yeah.
So you put 1,000 watts to this, and each driver is handling 500 watts, which it can very easily. If all of that is in one single voice coil, you have more heat build up ultimately than having two separate coils. So,
well, yeah, with power ratings being a function of the heat capability of the woofer,
heat
so to speak.
dissipation. Yes, whether it's yeah, the thermal power handling, or the power handling on a mechanical or acoustic level, my opinion is there are just benefits to having multiple smaller drivers than going to a single large driver.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, Shane. Hope you all learned something. I know I did. Sure appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up on the YouTube here, and we'll see you soon. Visit our website at rbhsound.com. Thanks again, Shane.
Yeah, thank you, Daren.